Good afternoon. This is the second episode of The Rest is Politics with me, David O'Donovan.
And me, Cillian Clark.
We've got a lot to talk about today, as it has been a very, very busy week for Ireland's political climate, to say the very least.
So, in light of that, today we will be speaking about the following topics. Is Fianna Fáil still electable after what happened this week? Is a three-way coalition going to work? And what are Labour's plans for Shannon reform?
So, kicking off with the first point, is Fianna Fáil still electable after what happened this week? What are your thoughts, Cillian?
Well, objectively speaking, okay, I think every party has the ability to transform their image after a crisis. It's how Labour have won. Labour has actually won the most elections this year, in spite of my regrettable mistakes, you know. But also, it's important to remember that the party has to be able to spin. Like I was a bit of a spin doctor in office, and you have to be to survive politically.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
I was just going to say, I think that the current elections have proved that. I mean, the last term with Lynette, I love Lynn, but you've got to admit that was not the best term Ireland's seen. It was relatively inactive.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and we didn't see much sort of the policy delivered as we'd have hoped to. And I mean, that's to do with coalition issues widely. But I think the fact that Labour were able to come out of the election subsequent to that with another seat, with a gain,
yeah.
shows that it's very possible to turn the odds in your favour simply down to good campaigning.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to be able to adapt to the circumstances you're in. And I think if Fianna Fáil can spin enough, they can distract. And
But
otherwise, I feel like when the election debate rolls around, which in my opinion, like I think the election debate has the capability to alter the course of the entire election. You know, I think without my election debate performances, I certainly would have lost. So when that rolls around, if they haven't spun, they're going to be scrutinized. They're going to be put under a microscope, which ultimately I don't think they'll survive.
absolutely, and I think on that point, I mean with Rave, he that's a new leader for Labour. I mean, if I'm just looking at this file here of images, and I'll send this over to you now, Cillian.
Yeah,
But in here, you can see pictures of what Craw has said. He said the R slur. He's referred to the Labour
yeah.
leader, the current Taoiseach, as the F slur.
Yeah, which I absolutely agree with, by the way. That's an amazing characterization of the Labour leader, might I
Right, we do not endorse that information. Um, this is Craw here forcing Atok to apologise to him for not attending the first session of the Dáil, despite him already removing them as Atok after just missing one session. And then he's also asking
Yeah.
for an apology on top of that. He's repeatedly used the R slur. And I think, honestly, looking at this, it's rather disturbing to actually look at this. The man,
It is, yeah.
the man who tried to topple me, before I resigned, the man who's constantly said he'd be a much better fit for leader of Fianna Fáil, but in actuality who's has seen a really inactive term of government and yet has only managed to not lose or gain any seats, and the man who's now been involved in this massive scandal, and yet he's still continuing as leader. Now, look,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm trying to be as impartial as possible here, but if honestly, I don't see a world in which this doesn't call for a resignation.
I get what you're saying. I think normally what happens is this is normally the protocol when a backbencher, because this has happened before, backbenchers resign, they flame their party leader, and the normal protocol for that is, well, it's just one backbencher. Nobody really cares. The Ireland turns a blind eye and the political winds move, they change. But this is really damning stuff, you know? It's him just berating members of his caucus,
Absolutely,
his own
absolutely.
deputy leader. I don't think we'll move on from this.
I think it's lucky that this has come so early in the term for Fianna Fáil. Had this been released in the election week, they would have been facing massive losses. But the fact that this is being released now means that they've got 2 months to turn this around. Now, whether Craw can turn it around is a separate question. I know I've left the civil service because I rejoined the Dáil, and now I had previous intentions. Now I'm running for Comla. But I now I have a seat with Fianna Fáil currently. Although I won't for much longer, hopefully. I think, I mean, he's made Nicholas the interim leader. the question is whether he's gonna think about it this week while he's been banned, make a judgment, come back, choose to resign, choose to stay on, see what the public think, wait for an opinion poll or something like that to come through. I don't know. I don't know what Crawl's planning on
Yeah,
doing, but
yeah,
he
it'll
seriously
be difficult.
thinks he seriously needs to think about this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm struggling to see a world in which Crawlerian leads Fianna Fáil into the next election and sees success, because on like the party leader is a huge component of that. Obviously he's the face of the party,
Yeah.
but if Fianna Fáil managed to remove him, there's no guarantee that they'll be able to change their image either. So I think this could be a permanent scarring for Fianna Fáil, but more importantly, a permanent exit from Irish politics for the foreseeable future. It'll be difficult for them to
As
survive, I suppose.
as someone who wrote the party constitution alongside Conor F. Ahern and Conor Novak, I can tell you right now that it is within the power of the national executive of the party to remove membership, and this is if the national executive talk with the electoral commission, this is certainly a basis to remove membership. So if Craw is removed and the new leader sees it right to do so, it is very possible that Fianna Fáil will remove the membership of Crawlerian and exile him from the
Yeah,
party, which I think would
it'll.
be very much beneficial for their image if they chose to do that, because that would show we don't endorse this. Very much a sort of Starmer approach to Corbyn with his anti-Semitism.
I was about to say that actually. Yeah, it would have been a
Yeah.
very sour approach to Corbyn, which I don't think we should get into, because
No,
I think
no.
I have very strong feelings about Corbyn, but not the point.
Right.
I I think Fianna Fáil's image is permanently tarnished by this. I think, again, we're not going to see a scenario. Well, obviously we can't rule it out, but we're not going to see a scenario where Crawlerian leads Fianna Fáil into the next election, winning seats. I mean, he couldn't even, without this scandal, he couldn't even lead them into an election and gain seats.
No,
So
I think the main
it's really
problem.
difficult for him.
I agree. I completely agree. I think the main problem is who would replace him. I mean, I had people messaging me saying, "Look, we need you to come back. We need you to run for the leadership." And these are people who are
Yeah,
relatively senior within the party, and
yeah,
and that just and that was before I'd left the civil service. That was immediately after we had these issues. So I think that if we're going to look at this and we're going to approach this in that sense, we need to think about the fact that maybe Fianna Fáil doesn't have an alternative. Maybe Craw's holding on to power because there isn't that other option, that alternative, as I said, like there was back when I was leader, when we had Max and when we had Craw and when we had Nicholas, these all strong candidates. Maybe just there isn't that option for Fianna Fáil this time.
yeah. No, I completely agree. But also, Nicholas as a deputy leader has been kind of steadfast and consistent, so I think he would serve very, very well. Should he have to replace Crawlerian? But
Yeah,
more importantly, like I have to ask, is there really an alternative to you or Nicholas taking over? Because nobody seems to be senior enough in the party. Nobody seems to be experienced
yeah.
enough. Like I
Uh,
don't know.
Nicholas. Nicholas was the guy who I wanted to succeed me throughout. For most of my time as leader of Fianna Fáil, I'd hoped for Nicholas to succeed me. Then he got a job and he wasn't able to attend the Dáil. And when you're not able to attend the Dáil, then you just simply can't run a party, unless you're like Destroyer and are happy with winning one seat in subsequent elections and not even sitting in the Oireachtas. But I don't think Fianna Fáil
Okay, but
wanted that.
if I have to interrupt there, because we all, between you and me, we know Destroyer was far more important as a Fianna Fáil leader than you. I mean, he was far more consequential to Fianna Fáil
Absolutely,
than you
I
will
mean,
ever be.
honestly, Destroyer completely turned the party around. We went from winning two seats to winning one seat. So honestly, completely turned
Yeah.
the party around on that front.
Oh God.
Um,
Yeah. Wouldn't have happened without him, by the way.
no, no. Oh, right.
Wow.
Way too much fun. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, on wrapping up on that subject, it's very much possible for Fianna Fáil to try and turn this around for them. They've got 2 months, but the question is how they're going to go about doing that. I don't see a foreseeable future where they can keep Craw on, not have this problem again, and then win an election. There is no way they're going to win an election with this leader. So it's the question of whether they're content with staying in opposition or whether they're content with getting a Tornister into the cabinet. But I honestly don't, because also party leaders don't want to go in a coalition with Craw. Otherwise, Fianna Fáil would be in the government. They just would be.
Yeah, he's a very abrasive figure, I have to say.
I mean,
he's not exactly.
You only have to look at these screenshots to wonder why people don't want to be in the government with him.
Absolutely. I mean, I actually remember a time, in 2020 and early 2021, where Sinn Féin was led by Kenny. I don't know if anyone will remember this, but it was led by Kenny, and they were winning at the time, huge pluralities. I mean, 9 seats at the time. That's an excellent amount to win. And he stayed in opposition. Nobody would form government with him.
Yeah,
so there's no point.
I managed to overtake
him.
I managed to overtake him as longest serving leader of the opposition, which I was very glad about. So as Dean said, longest serving loser. But I eventually won. Should we move on to our next topic of conversation?
I reckon we do, which is a 3-way coalition going to work? I think you should give your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I think this issue is certainly one that has come up in the past. We've seen 3-way coalitions before. Then they can be sometimes stable. I mean, was Lucy's? I forget. Lucy had a 3-way coalition, did she not?
She did. I thought Lucy had a 2-party coalition. No, I thought you're right. Actually, she had the Social Democrats and Fine Gael.
And then Fine Gael merged, didn't it? When you were literally leading Fine Gael. You should know.
I was leading Fine Gael at the time, and I went radio silent. So they merged Fine Gael with who was it they merged with? I think it was Labour. They merged Fine Gael.
You literally leading it. How do you not know?
Because I just ended up dying. I had school and things, so I just said, you know what, I'm not dedicating my. Which, by the way, one of the biggest regrets I had is choosing not to dedicate any time to this, and choosing to focus instead on real life adventures. But absolutely, yeah, no, they merged with Labour, which I have to say people forget that, but that was a period of great success and thriving for Labour because they had constant graphics out.
I think if Michael hadn't run Sinn Féin, Labour would have done a lot better. But Michael is an absolutely wonderful campaigner. You can't lie. He's a great campaigner. He's good at it.
I completely disagree.
Well, no, he does it dirtily. He's a bit like Boris Johnson in the fact that he does dirty politics. He does dirty campaigning. The sad thing is, it works.
Yeah. So absolutely, it's a state.
Actually, he's not Boris Johnson. Michael McGrath is the Dominic Cummings of Roblox.
Okay, but does Dominic Cummings going around to voters going, "Hey man, please come on, man, vote for me, man, come on, man."
I can't lie. I tried it with a couple of voters. And it worked really well.
I think the closest I've gotten to Michael McGrath campaigning is most people make the mistake. This is what Tony Blair did when he was Sinn Féin's campaign strategist. And don't ask me how I know this, but he used to DM people the same copy and paste, the same long sentence saying, "Hi, do you have time to speak about the upcoming election?" People don't respond because once they respond, they're alive. So what I used to do was just DM them, and I don't know why people didn't do this. Just DM them, "Hello, hi."
I normally say, for instance, if I was doing you, I'd say, "Hi, Cillian!" ! How are you?
Because I wouldn't respond to that whether it was election or not. You see,
it instantly makes you. I think it instantly personalizes it, and it also doesn't state that you're talking about the election. You're much more likely to get a response. And once they've said, "Hi, I'm well, thanks. How are you?" and then you say, "Can you talk about the election?" I think there's a psychological. It's much more.
There is, yeah.
It's much more likely for them to respond to that rather than just airing it because they know that. They know that you know that you've seen it.
Like I have to continue now because I've responded. I might as well,
And,
but
it worked. The strategy
I took.
The first time I used that strategy was the one I won 10 seats in, so it really does work. It may be that, or maybe the fact that Labour had just had like 3-4 subsequent terms, and it wasn't looking too good for them. But
Oh, four subsequent terms I learned. But anyway,
anyway, we're
is
getting
a
off
three-way
track.
coalition? Yeah, yeah, it's a three. I have to say, look, I say this all the time, Dermot, but I remember serving in the first ever tri-party coalition in January 2021. It was James Akeson, Nicola, who was a Supreme Court justice afterwards, and then ended up
Oh, I
retiring,
remember
and
him. I
Seamus.
remember him. He moved back to Labour under Tom.
Yeah, and he didn't do very well, but we don't speak about him. But they each led Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, and Labour respectively. So I don't think you'd actually see that nowadays. A
Who
Fianna
led
Fáil, Labour,
Labour?
and Fine Gael coalition.
Who led
But
Labour?
we saw that in 2022. But anyway, not the point. There wasn't back then. Ireland was smaller, I suppose, and there wasn't really a fear of instability at the time because of how experienced the leaders were.
Yeah.
There was a sense of maturity there, I feel like. But that's really shaped my perspective on three-party coalitions. They can definitely work. They have the capability to be as good, if not better, than two-party coalitions. But this one is different. We have some new faces, and James Akeson, who was just a handsome face. I think if this government collapses, it won't be on the basis of it being a three-party coalition. I don't think that's why. I don't think we can attribute it to the three-party coalition. It can probably be attributed to some arbitrary problem or event. I don't think it'll be on the basis of it's three unstable parties. I don't think that's it.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I think I'm actually rather shocked, if I'm being honest, looking at this programme for government, because the Labour Party, they've got, out of their coalition, which I believe, is it 13 seats that they've got? Yes, it is. They've got
I think
13 seats. And they've got 7, so they've just got over half the seats. Yet, they've got Taoiseach, they've got Minister for Business, they've got Minister for Justice, they've got Minister for Foreign Affairs and Defence. They've taken all the largest cabinet positions, and they've left their coalition partners with Minister for Communities and then also junior ministerial positions.
You're absolutely right, but I mean, if we're looking at this at the moment, sometimes coalitions aren't just about the power dynamic. With me and Sinn Féin, it was because we both had active ministers who wanted to serve,
Yeah,
and we were both eager to get those ministries. But I don't think the Social Democrats have enough manpower to actually get a full-on ministerial position.
no,
I don't think
yeah,
Fine Gael actually has the manpower to get a full ministerial position. So they probably said, which this has happened to me before, by the way, they probably said, can we just have a junior minister position, please? We can't afford a bigger one.
when I was Taoiseach, I looked at the cabinet not in the way of let's make this proportionate to the number of seats we have. I went, let's compare our proposed cabinets and choose which one in each of those positions is more experienced and who's going to do a better job. Because I knew that you're better off having an active and experienced and a cabinet who know what they're doing, rather than a cabinet who are just filling with your own ministers because you want it to be proportionate. Because if I think what's this, Kenny, at first during the end of the term he was bloody inactive, but at first he was quite a good business minister, give or take the whole union situation. But he was active.
Yeah.
He was active. He hosted those business meetings. We saw massive increases in business registration. I believe while I was Taoiseach, we saw, I think, over 70 new businesses registered just while I was Taoiseach, which I think is quite substantial compared to other Taoiseachs. How do you say it? Taoiseach? Taoiseach.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm just going to say Taoiseach because it's much easier.
Yeah.
You can say Prime Minister men when you're talking about the UK. But yeah, I feel like this government has slightly, I think it's slightly followed suit in that regard, because Fine Gael and the Social Democrats don't have nearly as many experienced members as the Labour Party in this election.
Yeah.
And I think
And
that
actually, when you consider, though, I'm sorry to interrupt, when you consider the circumstances Ireland is in, these are some really good faces, I think, to bring back into government. I mean, Kamala, Faye, and James, really good faces.
This government is actually it's very much slightly reminding me of my own government. They've taken a go at Enterprise Ireland in a good way. They've tried to reactivate that, an agency which I created. They're talking about establishing new agencies. although I don't quite know how that's going to work. They're talking about the health service executive, which is something which I've always pushed for. They're not talking about a local government, but they are making the Shannon bigger, I believe, and with elected individuals. So I certainly think that this is a step in the right direction for Ireland, this programme for government. I think it's something that we need. And if everything in here is delivered, because I best not speak too soon, hope to not jinx it, I think it could be a very successful term.
Yeah, I would actually have to agree with you on this one. I mean, given the circumstances Ireland is facing and the adversity we've seen in the past month, I want to say, um, this isn't revolutionary policy. I don't think anyone expected someone to pull out, a secret card from their sleeve this time. I don't think there was anything big expected. But the policy we're seeing are commitments that are actually quite optimistic when you look at it. I mean,
They
the
are.
different events being held, they don't seem revolutionary. But when Ireland is facing this difficulty and this winter of discontent, I mean, I think these are important policies to be held. So I think I have to agree with you on this one.
They
I
absolutely
think
are.
this coalition will work. Fingers crossed.
And we've just got to hope that the three-way coalition doesn't undermine that, and we don't have a repeat of last term where we've got anger with the coalition partners. Because the policy in the government is
Yeah.
strong. However, having a three-way government is never easy. The Taoiseach's got to please two parties, one who's left wing, one who's right wing. That's
Yeah, I'd love to add to that actually. I mean, the dynamic between the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach, I would love to know how they get along. If I was a fly on the wall, oh my God. I mean, we have a very I don't want to be mean, but it's objectively true. We have a very inexperienced Taoiseach who's I think been minister twice or three times, and then that was kind of it. He was sparsely a minister, maybe half a minister when I was re-elected.
he was Minister
And
for
then we have
Business
this
because
Taoiseach.
this is Diar UK that we're talking about.
No, I do know, but he's not.
Or how do you
I wouldn't
pronounce
have.
it?
I don't think anyone had him on their bingo card for Taoiseach, you know.
No,
And
absolutely not. But
yeah, and then here we have Taoiseach, by the way, James Akeson. How many elections has he faced in a row? I'm not sure.
more
I
than
don't think
me.
he's getting the hint from. Oh God. But yeah, really weird power dynamic there. I mean, someone who's far more experienced. I'd love like, but at the same time, James is not the type of person to just hand out advice. So I suppose in that respect, Bravasai won't be getting any lectures or stern speeches from James. So
I
I
love
don't know.
I love how I have really got my place in the National Archives. I'm the longest serving leader of the opposition. I am
Yeah.
the shortest serving Tornister. And I'm right slap bang in the middle. Exactly slap bang in the middle for serving as Taoiseach. So I am
Yeah.
So yeah, the only thing I'm average at is being Taoiseach. The rest of it,
But
I'm very special. Anyway, enough about me. Yeah, I think I was quite surprised when I saw his manifesto. I thought the Irish version was absolutely amazing. I mean, you know me. I love talking about FNG and about
yeah.
making language a much bigger part of our
Do you wanna
government.
do you wanna try pronounce? Do you wanna try pronounce FNG?
Um, um,
Go for it. Come on, we'll try it. We'll try it.
Forest na Gaelic.
Well, you did good with the forest. You did good with the na, but it's not forest in the garlic. No, it's
Gaelic. Garlic. I didn't say
Gaelic. Forest in the Gaelic.
garlic.
Oh God. Evidently, Shglauv, that's how I say his name, has
Oh.
not done a very good job teaching you folks. Not very.
By the way, folks, I've got
But
to mention. I did forget to mention this earlier, but the reason why there's Cillian and Diarmid, of all people, running this podcast, although you may wonder who on earth are these people, why are they running it? We are both former Taoiseachs, or have we do it? Did Cillian say the word?
Taoiseach.
We're both former Taoiseach. I am very much sort of I'm probably one of the most actual conservative people in Ireland. There's people there who like the Liz Truss aesthetic, and then there's people like Destroyer who are sort of concerningly right wing. So if you're looking for a safe conservative person in Ireland, I'm the one to talk to. Whereas
No.
Cillian is very much your average commie, your Facilio Quinley.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, no, I'm like surfing the line. I think
yeah,
I wouldn't call myself a communist because
no,
communism is not I
I'd call
don't
you
think communism is an idea.
you're a socialist,
Yeah, I would call myself a democratic socialist. Yeah, so
democratic
very,
socialist,
very far left, not quite
and
communist. But
I'm
also, I think you're absolutely right, by the way, when you call Destroyer a concerningly right-wing person. But it's why we love him. I think
yeah,
it's why we love him. I mean,
I'm
he's
I'm
really he pushed boundaries.
I'm a libertarian conservative, sort of, your classic free market
Yeah,
capitalist. Anyway,
a good synonym for that is uneducated, might I add. A very
right,
good synonym for a libertarian.
thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
So
But
so
anyway,
Cillian is your Alistair Campbell, I'm your Rory Stewart. I think we should move on to our third and final topic today because, funnily enough, we've already been going for half an hour.
oh,
We have, I know, right? Time flies when you're talking Roblox politics. Um, so this is probably the shortest one because I don't think Cillian and I really know what we're talking about here. It's it's
You know what? Speak for yourself. I could be very. You don't know. I could be very educated on this topic.
what what are Labour's plans for Shannon reform?
I don't think
Um,
anyone knows. Well,
well, we got a wonderful paper. Was it a white paper, whatever you
we
call it in
did.
Ireland? Let me send it to you,
Yeah,
Cillian, if you don't have it. There we
I,
are.
I have it. I have it open. Don't worry.
We have it open, right? Together we will
Yeah.
misunderstand everything that Kamala has said. If you go to the end, it talks to us all about proposals, outline of proposals.
Institutions. So.
So Shannon expansion. The Shannon will comprise of 14 members, 10 elected, 2 nominated by the president, and 1 nominated by the Taoiseach and leader of the opposition. What are your thoughts on that?
So many thoughts. Well, look. I think in terms of these plans, though, I mean, expand. I think they've made a mistake here. Can I be honest with you? I know I'm not the most educated person on the Shannon. I think the government have made a mistake. They want to. The Shannon's problem is activity, and their solution for this is kind of making it more representative, making it more. I don't know, giving it a mandate. I think they're misconfused. They're misrepresenting what the electorate want. I don't think the electorate want to give the Shannon a mandate. I don't
Like,
think they have an
honestly, what
interest in
happened
the
to
Shannon.
nepotism?
And I think, but I don't think they want to give the Shannon a mandate because, like, they have no interest in the Shannon. The Shannon doesn't elect a Taoiseach. The Shannon, I mean, if it wants to do its job of keeping the Dáil in check, then why do they need a mandate for that?
I
I don't
think
know.
having a
I
bureaucracy
like,
in the upper chamber, like with the Shannon, how it was before, isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, if
yeah,
honestly, if you're looking for changing stuff because they're unelected, introduce something like the Salisbury Convention, but for the Shannons. Are you familiar with the Salisbury Convention?
no idea what
It's
you're talking
basically
about right
it's a
now.
thing in the House of Lords where they can't deny legislation that's part of the government's manifesto. Um, so
Oh, well, I feel like that has something to do with a. By the way, quick history fact: did that not have something to do with like the budget or something? I
yeah,
feel
the
like that
People's
that
Budget,
was related to it.
David Lloyd
Okay.
George's People's
There,
Budget. Um,
there
I
we go.
believe that was the Parliament Act which led to the Salisbury Convention. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that's not a necessarily bad idea because this is policy that the government have been elected on. The Shannon should not have the authority, and unelected bodies should not have the authority to say no to that. So I think that
Well, they didn't have it though. They didn't have that authority. All they did was delay bills. So
well,
like, why? What's wrong with that system? I like it.
I just yeah I think I don't see why we need elected members in the Shannon, but clearly Kamala has got a justification, and I've no doubt
Yeah.
that I will come back later on this evening after this has been published to 5 pings in general chat from Kamala asking 5 different questions, criticising me on it and
Oh
on what
God,
we said,
no.
and maybe 15 DMs or something, and then we'll have to get her on next time. I did actually try and get Kamala on
Yeah.
today, but she's currently in the Capitol building. Of all places.
Oh.
of all
Right.
places.
So is she one of the? Are they storming the Florida Capitol? Is she one of the MAGA supporters? Is that what's happening down there in
Yeah,
Florida?
yeah,
I
probably.
wouldn't be surprised.
Um,
Probably, yeah.
right. Next. Altern alternating election cycles. So this is two classes. Right. I feel like I'm reading about the U.S. Senate now.
Well, I think she was right to draw inspiration from the U.S. Senate because that's obviously a very active and important chamber, very bustling with activity, and she was probably thinking to herself, well, how can we create reforms to liken the Irish Senate to the American Senate? So I don't think she was particularly wrong in doing that.
No.
Um,
But I
but
don't see why the election system of the U.S. Senate needs to be incorporated with the Shanad. Why? I think it'd be much less complex if everyone's elected at the same time.
I'm sure it's in. By the way, I'm sure it's in a document somewhere why she wants an alternating election cycles, but I'm not going to be able to find that
There's 6
because
pages. I
this is a
cannot be
very,
asked.
yeah,
Um,
very extensive document. Yeah,
anyway, we'll get pinged all about this later, Cillian. We can mention it next time.
we will. We
Right.
will. I'm
Enhanced
ready.
delaying power. The Shannon's delaying power will be extended to a potential 4 weeks, providing a robust check on
Yeah,
legislative proposals. So this is a sort of a build-up of the scrutiny that the Shannon should be providing.
yeah.
I mean, if I become
Wow.
caller, God, this will be annoying.
Oh, definitely. Oh,
Uh,
definitely. But
and it will
I
gain the
don't
authority to reject constitutional amendments bills. Right.
I'm okay with that. I'm
I
okay with
agree.
that
I'm
actually. I
actually
don't.
quite happy with that. I think that's absolutely fair enough. Although 4
Yeah.
weeks, that's a whole month. And now the problem I have with that is that if a government's proposing this in their 4th week in office, it's going to be the next government that deals with it. So I honestly feel
Yeah.
like this means that any controversial legislation that a government proposes, they have to do it in the first 4 weeks, which is quite a lot of pressure on any government.
Well, that is a huge amount of pressure, but I have to say, this is very much in line with her performance as a minister under my government because that's the first thing she did. She proposed one of the first bills she proposed was the Legal Systems and Consolidation Act. Like that was oh god, I can't remember how long that was. That was about 29 pages, I think.
It was too
And
long,
she
Cillian.
knew it would be
She
controversial.
proposed it half an hour
Too long.
before the
That's
session.
right.
Half an hour before the session, I had to
Yeah.
read through that whole thing.
I love that. That is so smart, by the way. 29-page bill, a half an hour before the sitting.
That's what
the
the
first thing she
UK
did,
government
propose
do in
all the
real
great.
life. It's what they do in real life.
I love I love that. I love that. I might become a conservative after this. I might. But yeah, no, I don't see the issue with that. I mean, I think it will obviously apply pressure to the government, but I don't think the governments in Ireland are facing enough pressure at the moment. I mean, if they can get away with inactivity and whatnot, then
Yeah.
their legislation might well be under the same scrutiny. I feel like.
Absolutely. Right, presidential nominations. Nominated senators will adhere to specific criteria ensuring independence and balanced engagement in political activities. They act as a counterbalance against partisanship with that. So this is just crossbench, basically. It's like the crossbench peers at the House
Yeah.
of Lords. I don't think that's a bad
Yeah.
idea because I've always thought with the crossbench, for a government to pass legislation in the Lords, they will need the support of the crossbench. And the crossbench can sway to the opposition or to the government. And I've always thought that that's great sort of scrutinising help for the House of Lords. And I think if the Shannon wants to enhance that scrutiny with those unelected presidential nominees, I think that that's going to be very helpful because that's where you've got the experience. That's where you're going to ensure that the people in the Shannon, those 2 people are definitely going to be experienced people. And I think that will definitely be helpful when passing legislation because they will have the final say.
Yeah.
They will have the final say,
Yeah,
and they will be the experienced
agree.
ones. So I agree with
But
that.
that's probably actually a highlight of these proposals. My favorite has to be the expansion of the presidential nominations, which by the way, not exactly increasing the numbers, but giving them criteria and whatnot, and a counterbalance against partisanship. I love that. I mean, if I'm going to be honest with you, I think my ideal Shannon would probably be a return to the one we had in the Irish Free State, believe it or not, the one in 2021, 2020.
I wasn't here
because
then, so if you could elaborate.
yeah, I will. extremely non-political. I mean, it was just full of agency executives. So the
Right.
chief of staff of Oglig na HÉireann, a commissioner of An Garda Síochána, and then a bunch of other non-partisan, completely impartial people. Obviously, they had no mandate, but they knew what they were doing. They had a job, so it gave a chance for like public sector workers, obviously represented and culminating in their bosses, to scrutinize legislation, and that would be probably my ideal. A return to
Absolutely.
that kind of
I've
chamber.
I've always
So
thought I've always
yeah,
thought with committees, I don't think we should have the fixed committees like we did before. But what I do think we should have is the ability for the corn caller, Comla, the Taoiseach, or I have no clue how to pronounce the name of the Speaker of the Seanad. Um, that word is
Cahirlach and Ken Corlach.
right. It's way too long. It's right beyond my talent. Um, but I've always thought that they should have the ability to establish select committees, just like on the go, just like
Really?
just one committee for a specific thing. Like, oh, we're going to establish a committee in the Shannon to review the government's employment legislation.
Yeah,
Or I just think
yeah.
that should be a power that is legislated.
Well,
Um,
in the original Committees Act, that was a thing. That was a stipulation that
I think
the
we should
Dáil
bring
and
that
Shannon
back.
could vote to close it.
I
Yeah,
think that should be brought back, and that is one of the selling points that I think I'm going to make in my corner speech, because
yeah.
I think that is important that we can get backbenchers involved in some way, rather than them just turning up on a Friday and a Saturday, sitting there doing nothing during questions, and then on a Saturday walking into a lobby and then walking out again, because that's not what
I love
that's
that.
that it's that in that situation it's only the government and the leader of the opposition doing anything. The rest of them are doing F all. Um,
That's true. That's true. I mean, when I was this again, this is another adventure into Cillian's political aspirations here. I always wanted to be leader of the opposition, but throughout my political career, I've only ever been small opposition or Taoiseach. So it's been
right.
a range of two extremes. But I've always loved to have run a main opposition party. So I suppose being in your position, longest serving leader of the opposition, would have been so much fun. The first thing I would have done is more statements, right? I think when you're in main opposition, you need to be providing more statements to the public on your alternative plans, etc. But also, I think you getting your backbenchers involved in the opposition, that's such a big opportunity to
I'm
like
happy
scrutinize
to
the government.
say.
And
I'm happy to say for the.
yeah,
Sorry, carry on, carry on, carry on.
no, you continue. I was
I was
actually
just,
interested in what you were saying
I was
there.
just gonna say I'm happy to say that for the majority of my time as leader of the opposition, I wasn't a very good leader of the opposition. And that's mainly because I was the leader of the opposition for so long, which sort of proves my point in that regard.
Yeah.
If
Oh
you're leading
God.
if you're leading the opposition for 6 months consecutively, you're not doing a very good job. Um,
Oh God.
Either that or the Taoiseach was bloody good, so it definitely can't be that one. So it
Whoever
would
he was, by the way,
it,
whoever he was, yeah.
yeah. But it definitely
But
can't be the Taoiseach one, because yeah, there were no good Taoiseachs then. Sorry,
of course, I can't.
Shig,
T-Shig,
Shig. I'll get there
T-Shig,
eventually.
yeah.
It's definitely not Teo.
Um. But no, I think being in opposition is such an opportunity to obviously government backbenchers should be asking questions, etc. But they're less inclined to because they don't want to score political points against the government. That's naturally what questions are, trying to point out the flaws in the government. But if I was leader of the opposition, and I'm sure it's easier said than done, I would have my backbenchers slamming into the government that sounds inappropriate, every Friday, literally giving them questions, constantly to ask, pointing out their flaws in their governance. I would have absolutely loved that. I think I would have lived through that. But I suppose we can't all get what we want. But yeah, no, certainly it felt, as Taoiseach, might I add, it felt as though a bit lackluster from my leader of the opposition, because I used to expect the worst going into question sittings. I used to have every department prepared. I used to ask for, I used to ask my ministers questions like an hour before the sitting, saying, "How are we doing on this? How are we doing on that?"
Oh,
Only come question time, he's asking about Garda recruitment, and I'm like, "Oh, well, you could probably tell by looking at the public employment channel, Mr. Leader of the Opposition, Leader Fianna Fáil, you know."
yeah. Well, that is
But
very much that's very much true. Right. Well, I
yeah, yeah.
believe wraps up today's topics. Um,
Oh no.
we've spoken about Labour's plan for Shannon reform. We've spoken about the three-way coalition. and we have spoken about Fianna Fáil and whether, in regards to what happened this week with Crolerian, whether it's still an electable party. I think it's been quite successful. We've been on here for 40 minutes, almost exactly. Cillian, do you have anything to add?
No, probably just that I'm right and that Dermot is wrong.
Actually, I'm right and you're left.